Hey everyone, Cameron from Definitely Tech here, and today we're doing a small little contest with the Q6600. So let's get into it. We're going to have an aesthetics category which a special guest host is going to judge, and we're going to have a fan favorite, so be sure to look at the link below to see our poll. So the competition rules are as follows. The GPU must be before 2016, so any AMD cards around the RX 480 or the RX 400 series, or RX 500 series is unavailable, as well as the Vega series. Any NVIDIA card newer or around the 1000 or the 10 series, so no 1060, 1050 Ti, none of that, even though those pair extremely well with our CPU. Our CPU must be a Q6600. This build-off is based around the Q6600 and how well it does in modern times and how well it does in modern games. Any price point is open for the competition, so you can spend $800 or you can spend $200. Because we have an open-end budget, our competition will be based off price per performance. The only stipulation is you need to try to make the system look as best as possible. So our real push was to use a modern type case, preferably one produced recently with a tempered side glass panel, and using some RGB, as you may see in my build. The benchmarks for the price per performance will be Cinebench R15, Firestrike, Fortnite, CSGO, The Division 2 for the 2019 title, and Battlefield 4 for an older title relative to our older hardware. Our storage drive must be able to hold all of these games. So we do have a lower limit storage to kind of push our pricing up, but our benchmarks do not need to be run off said storage drive. And to prove that we have a fully functioning drive in the system, we will have a crystal disk benchmark as well. Our competitor is Tech Teardown, a wonderful YouTuber with about as many subscribers as me, but he definitely deserves a lot more. He uploads quite frequently and does amazing budget hardware, as well as looking at older hardware, see how it compares to modern hardware. I believe he does several videos on the new GTX 1650, and they are wonderful if you're considering on looking at that GPU, so check out those links below. Alright, let's get into the build. So for our build, we had to choose the Q6600. So I browsed eBay to get some sort of bundle deal and trying to get one as best as possible. I was able to come across a best offer deal for an Asus P5N-D motherboard with the Q6600, as well as 4 GB of DDR2. I believe it was listed for $40 plus $10 shipping. I offered him $20 plus the shipping for just the Q6600, the cooler, and the motherboard. So he was able to keep the ATI graphics card that he was offering, as well as the 4 GB of DDR2. So we had to go with the GPU that is older than the 2016 model, so I ended up getting an R9 290 from also an eBay dealer. I was able to pick that up for an easy $51 with $19.80 shipping. So that was a great deal, and that is the bulk of our system. I was able to pick up a Gamax cooler, a Gamax 400, for a Newegg deal for less than $20, but we're going to round it up to $20 for consistency's sake. And then we had a 1 terabyte hard drive that I was able to pick up locally for $20. So finally, for the aesthetics, for the modern case, I was able to go with the Fractal Design Meshify C, which I painted a silver, which looks absolutely incredible, and everything fits in here perfectly. What's best about this is we'll be able to throw 3 thermal take fans up front. But with that said, let's see if we can get the system to boot. Alright, what we're going to do right now is to power up the system. We have everything plugged in. Going to make sure the power supply is on. This is going to be our first boot. Let's see what happens. When I turn it on, it looks like we do have a little green light on the motherboard, which is always great. But what we'll do is power it up, hit that power button. We do have the blue LED from the Gamma 400. So let's see if we can get that. We had a little struggle there. And we get a post automatically. So with the Asus P5N-D, looks like USB device is overcurrent detected? Interesting. We'll get what that kind of error message is, but we'll plug in our boot device. Let's plug in our boot device and see what happens. I'm curious to what that was. Curious if it was a some kind of setting or something. Let's see if we can boot to a Windows 10 ISO and see if we can put that on there. USB device current overcurrent detected. Interesting. Please remove overcurrent USB device. Interesting. So I have no clue what that is, but we'll get to that and then we'll see what happens. Let's move forward. So with the system booted, we are able to throw in some more aesthetics. I was able to pick up these Thermal Take 120mm fans that we can throw all three up front for around $30. I think I'm going to round it up to $30 because I cannot, for the life of me, find where I got these fans. So throwing that into the system total, our total comes out to $300.85. A wonderful system for the price, and I believe we were able to do this. So the next steps were overclocking that system. We were able to overclock that CPU to a 3 gigahertz solid. Unfortunately, we couldn't push it any further. Any frequency above the 1333 FSB frequency wasn't allowing the system to post to Windows. So unfortunately, we are locked at that 3 gigahertz. So that's it. There's the system. Let's get into benchmarks. So in Cinebench R15, I was able to sneak out a 286 with the 3.0 gigahertz overclock. A 600 megahertz overclock slightly increased it. I believe the baseline test was around 217. So getting that extra 50 to 60 points in Cinebench was extremely helpful. As for 3D Firemark, we were able to pull off a 7,307 total score, and you'll see the final labeling for the graphics and the physics score as well. For Fortnite, we got a kind of console gaming experience with 34.6 average FPS and a 19.4 minimum. So there was some stuttering here and there, but I believe this is very console-esque gaming, at least in the Xbox One, not the Xbox One S or the Xbox One X era, but the older Xbox One gave us around that score. The CSGO was actually quite smooth, and while it wouldn't be competitive play, you were still getting that gaming experience of 43.87 average FPS with a 30.86 minimum. Battlefield 4 also had very similar scores with 43.95 FPS average and a 34 FPS minimum. Now, Division 2, the 2019 title for this contest, we did not do well at all in this title, especially because the Q6600 is such an old title. We were getting CPU bottlenecks out the wazoo for this title. We unfortunately had a 12.9 average FPS and a 6.57 minimum. So this game is unfortunately unplayable with my system. I believe if we pulled an extra overclock, even another 400 or 600 megahertz overclock to get to that 3.4 or 3.6 gigahertz that I was not able to post, I believe we could do a little bit better and decrease that CPU bottleneck as much as possible. Lastly, we ran a Crystal Mark to our systems in case one of us ran the SSD, but we had a standard 1TB Western Digital Blue drive, so I could show the Crystal Mark here. Unfortunately, I'm not really into what the Crystal Mark benchmark shows, but if for those of you to know, I'll give that result. So with the total cost of $300.85, I believe we did similarly well, and while this isn't the greatest 1080p gaming experience, it's very similar to the console. I wouldn't necessarily call it a console killer, but with the older system, it is definitely doing extremely well. So with our scores and price being totaled together, we are now going to hand our scores, mine and Tech Teardowns, over to OzTalks Hardware, where he is going to judge the overall price to performance. And if you guys want to vote, we have a poll down below where you can pick the best looking or the best value or just the best overall computer that you would like to vote for. Again, go check out Tech Teardown as he uploads very often. And please go check out OzTalks Hardware as he's going to have the final results as well as everything else. But if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I have plenty of videos coming up, and a little surprise, you might see a little hint up there. But stay tuned, and I hope to see you in the next video. This is definitely Tech.